What's happening, everybody? I am Steve, and welcome back to the House of Kayfabe here on the Superior Radio Network. If you like what we're doing, we are brand new to YouTube. We've been in podcast form for about a year and a half now, but if you like what we're doing, please give us a like, comment, and share. If you're really trying to help us push our content, please also subscribe and hit that notification bell so you will get notified when we upload new videos. This episode, we go on a deep dive into wrestling belts, and I hope you enjoy it. Take it away, Brian.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the House of Kayfabe Special Edition. And today we are talking about championship belts. That is right. I have got a cast of folks here with me today. Derek Jones, Barker is with me, Matt Mullins, and the one and only Stephen P. New all came to this conversation today to talk about the greatest belts ever designed. And we're going to go through and we're going to share four of our favorites, and a lot of them are going to be the same. I mean, because there's a lot of really good belts out there that a lot of people are going to pick. So you're going to see some doubles here and there, but we're going to talk about the greatest belts in our opinion. And then at the end of the show, we're going to throw out some belts that maybe aren't the greatest or maybe are underrated, but not necessarily the greatest. We're going to freestyle a lot of belts today, and that is what we are here to talk about because we are all belt marks. All of us here are belt marks. We love belts. And I'd say at WrestleCade, we're probably going to run into lots of belts that we're going to want to buy. And hopefully Matt will have a firm grip on Stephen P. New's credit card so we can get all the ones that we want.
This is a recurring theme, apparently, residents of House of Kayfabe. For the next month, I got to pay off those credit card bills so that the platinum and the gold and the silver are all in good shape when we roll into Winston-Salem.
I get the black one.
I want the gold. I want the gold.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we are here to talk about belts, and that is exactly what we're going to do. And the first person I really want to get started with is a guy who is a true belt enthusiast. Derek Jones, you've got a list of 4 belts, and I want to put you on the spot first. Tell me what 4 belts stand out to you as the best belts in wrestling history.
So in no particular order, but the 4 belts to me, we're going to start with the newest, the AEW World Championship. It's big, belt. It's bold, it's beautiful, it's jeweled galore. It's a great belt. I love when a world championship looks like a world championship. It just stands out. It looks nice. Now the rest of their belts, it is what it is. But that AEW World title is beautiful.
Now, something I'd like to say about the AEW title before you move to your next belt is I like the way that it's not like other belts, and it kind of fits together like a puzzle. Like if you look how it's pieced, if you put it all together, you'd have one big plate.
Yes.
And I think that's a really cool, like, it's almost like it's broken, but it's not broken.
It kind of reminds me of some of the boxing titles.
It does.
When I was doing the pre-production for this and going through all of the belts, it kind of has a feel of the IWGP Intercontinental belt. Derek, don't you think that was part of that was an inspiration for that?
I would imagine that there has to be some New Japan influence on that title, just based on all the guys that are involved and where it come from. There's no doubt about it.
You know, I could have never put this on my list simply because it's just brand new and it doesn't have the type of lineage that some of the titles that I picked or importance of some of the titles that I picked. But I will say this belt impressed me right out the gate. It was always an impressive belt. And I tell you what, it's one that I would like to add to my collection.
And you like definitely should. Sorry,
I like the fact that in 4 locations on that belt, there are 4 parts of the world, if you will. I mean, you'd see Australia down there. You see North America, South America. That part of the belt I really like.
Yeah, I enjoy a lot of it.
Absolutely. And again, that's just another reason that it is a true world championship. They are acknowledging that this belt is representative of all and not just their little territory in Florida.
Well, when it's on someone's waist, it truly does look like the World Heavyweight Championship. There's no question when you see somebody wearing this belt, they are the World Heavyweight Champion.
Absolutely. And speaking of little territories in Florida. My second title is going to be the NXT World Championship or Heavyweight Championship. Excuse me.
The original one.
The original, the big X in the center, the thick straps all the way around. It didn't have just normal side straps. Those are way thicker than any other belt that's around. And it looks like, to me, it looks like an underground Fight Club belt. It does not look like a heavyweight championship or a world title. NXT at that time, the black and gold brand, was underground. It was punk rock. It was, whatever metaphor you want to use for it. And I think that belt represented it 100%. I love the old belt more so than the new one. I like all the guys that held that title. It looked like just something completely different than anybody else was doing.
When you're talking about guys who held the title, one name comes to mind when I see this belt, and that is Bo Dallas. And that's because I was a Bo-liever. I was 100%. I was 100% a Bo-liever. And hear me out on this. When Bo Dallas was the heavyweight champion in NXT, his gimmick was that he was a completely oblivious heel. He had no idea that everybody hated him, and he just thought they were booing him because they believed. And it was just a beautiful gimmick, the way that he put it together. If he would have had that same character on Monday Night Raw, he would be a world heavyweight champion today.
But didn't he, though?
Not long enough.
They didn't give it the time it needed for that angle to work.
And they also didn't give it the situations that he had in NXT to get that character over. He didn't have those same type of situations on Raw. It was a quick little moment that he got to do that, and then they were like, "Oh, you're gonna do something else now." So for me, when I look at this belt, I think of that amazing ladder match between Pac and Bo Dallas, and I do like it on that account. But I can also look at it and say, that would probably be a motherfucking painful belt to wear.
It's clunky. It just looks clunky.
There's leather at the top around that edge.
Yeah.
Why would it be painful?
I think it would still be a little uncomfortable to wear. One belt that I'm going to mention that no one's going to say is their favorite belt, I can guarantee, is the second version of the TNA Heavyweight Championship. That big, heavy, it weighs like 160 pounds. It's like belt. You put that belt around your waist and you will feel it. It hurts you. It literally hurts you.
I was going to mention that belt when we were talking about the AEW heavyweight title. Is like, I think what they were trying to do in TNA is make a big belt, but it didn't pan out. It looked clunky. And I think that AEW nailed it with the big belt. Like,
they did.
Not the same.
One that kind of looks like big gold.
Yes, that's the one. And that one right there, it will hurt you. It will also hurt the leather strap. I don't know if anyone's ever owned one of these belts, but that spot right there between the side plate and the main plate will get a giant cut in the leather if you actually move it around too much, because those plates are so thick and so sharp and so heavy. Yeah. That belt is very unconventional.
Is this the one that just got retired?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So real quick, as Derek's given his 4 list, I think that that's a really cool thing that we should each say, who do we think of when we look at that title?
When I see we'll go back then and we'll say, when I see the AEW title, I think of Chris Jericho.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
That was before Chris Jericho lost his mind and his dignity. That was when he was still, a viable wrestler and not a sad old man chasing clout.
A quick disclaimer here. Not everyone agrees with Stephen Barker.
Derek Jones does. I bet you Derek does.
Jericho is an amazing talent and will always be an amazing talent. He's
Derek thinks Jericho's the GOAT, Barker.
I do
think
too.
He's one of the greatest of all time. I would never disrespect
You think he's
Jericho.
the GOAT? Stop taking a crap on him.
Wait, now hold on for a second. It gives us a chance. Now, if you like what you're hearing, if you go in the description of this video, we have the link to all of the past podcast shows, because before we went to YouTube, this existed in podcast form. And if you go back to our podcast page and you go to our Mount Rushmore, you will see that I, Steve Barker, put Chris Jericho on my Mount Rushmore. So I can say that dude has been an embarrassment since he dropped the belt.
Okay, so anyway, once again, we do not share the same sentiment here because I love Chris Jericho, and I just want to let you know, Stephen Barker, Jim Cornette is not here yet. You don't have to show off for him.
I think Jericho, but I could totally. I mean, if you tell me to picture the AEW title in my mind, I can also see John Moxley, walking through the crowd with it. So
This is actually really easy to do because there's only been a few champions.
Yeah, but there's been 3.
Steve, who do you think of when you see the AEW championship?
I think
Adam Page.
You think of Adam Page, even though he doesn't have it yet or never had it. Barker, who do you think of when you see the AEW title?
I think of Chris Jericho's past glory.
Oh, okay. So NXT title. I said I think of Bo Dallas. When you see this NXT title, who do you think of, Matt Mullins?
Pac.
Who do you think of, Derek Jones?
The greatest era of NXT, Sami Zayn.
Okay, Stephen P. New, who do you think of when you look at the NXT title?
Probably Pac as well.
All right, Barker, what do you think?
Seth Rollins, man.
Seth Rollins.
The original.
The
All right,
OG.
let's go to your next belt, Derek Jones. Your next belt on your list.
So the next belt on my list is not a world title, but it is a favorite title because I love tag team wrestling, and it is the old school WWF World Tag Team Championship. It is a beautiful belt. A lot of indie promotions and other promotions have adapted this exact design for their actual world titles because it is such a beautiful belt.
It is absolutely beautiful belt, and when I see this belt, I think of the Legion of Doom. What about you, Matt Mullins?
I got to go to the Hart Foundation.
Oh, that's a good one too. Derek Jones,
Legion of Doom.
Stephen P. New.
The Samoans, Alpha and Sika.
Ooh.
Okay, Barker.
Man, as much as I love the Legion of Doom, and again, old podcast, go check them out because we also did a fantastic favorite tag team episode. Man, I got to go Demolition.
Demolition is who you think of when you see this belt.
Absolutely.
I can totally see that. They had it longer than everybody else.
They did.
All right, Derek Jones, into your 4th belt.
My 4th belt and the greatest belt in the history of professional wrestling, the 10 pounds of gold, Sweet Charlotte, the NWA World Heavyweight Championship.
Oh, such a beautiful piece of belt artwork. Actually, Derek Jones and myself had a belt designed for Stephen P. New that was based on this belt. We still have to post a picture of that.
We're going to put that right here on YouTube right now.
We definitely need a picture of that in the residence group as well, because that belt turned out really beautiful. But when I think of this belt, there's only one man I can think of. I'm sorry, but it's Ric Flair, baby. This belt means Ric Flair to me. What about you, Matt Mullins?
Well, I would like to say that I agree with you, but even though that I have the title on my Flair Remco figure here, I have to say, when I think of the NWA title, I have dined on the corner with pork and beans and down with the finest kings and queens, if you will. I said it backwards, baby.
There's that real iconic picture of Dusty, like bloody, and it looks like he's like covered in beer. That's an iconic picture.
I've watched so many of those documentaries on Dusty and Flair, and it goes back to those matches, of Dusty and Flair, and I think of Dusty. So yeah.
Yeah, that is.
Is that Tommy Rich?
He's
That's
just
Tommy Wildfire Rich.
Oh,
Hey,
shit.
Look at that.
How long did he have it, Steve?
4 days. 4 days in 1981.
Hey, he's in the legacy.
But I
baby.
got to tell you, apparently, Georgia Championship Wrestling, who wanted an NWA World Champion really, really bad, I think they kept that motherfucker up for 96 hours doing nothing but taking photographs of Tommy Wildfire Rich with the belt, because every time you saw him thereafter in a magazine, in a whatever, Tommy Wildfire Rich had the 10 pounds of gold around his waist, and he could be in the middle of a feud with whoever. I mean, he could be in the middle of a feud with Roddy Piper, with Dick Slater, with
Buzz Sawyer.
Buzz Sawyer, yes, one of the greatest feud of all time. And he was still chasing Flair. Flair, I'm coming back for you, brother. I had that title around my belt and around my waist once, and I know what it feels like. And Ric Flair, you're mine, brother.
I did not expect a Tommy Rich promo today. Steve, what is the story about him only having it for 4 days? Like something went wrong?
Yeah, it was all kind. It was the NWA politics. You know, it was like the promoters agreed they would put it on people, on faces like Dusty, to appease the Florida promotion, but just for a very short period of time. And they would put it on Tommy for a very short period of time. Meanwhile, heels like Race and Flair got it for a long period of time. And what you saw there was the shift from St. Louis with Race in the 70s, with Jack Briscoe getting it for a relatively short period of time, Terry Funk, Dory Funk Jr., and then the power shift. Jim Crockett Jr. became the president of the NWA. There was a power shift towards Charlotte, and then Flair pretty much had the belt from Starrcade '83 on for the rest of the decade. It was just NWA power politics.
Okay.
I do know that Derek Jones has picked the 10 pounds of gold, and I know another list that includes the 10 pounds of gold. So let's go to Stephen P. New. Stephen P. New, your belt selections. Let's talk about them. We'll start with the 10 pounds of gold since we're already talking about it. What made you pick the 10 pounds of gold? Why is it so special to you?
Just so synonymous. You know, I watched a lot of wrestling when I was a kid of all different kinds, but the world champion who was coming on my TV most was Ric Flair or Harley Race, you know, and that was either MidAtlantic or Georgia Championship Wrestling on the Superstation TBS. So that's what I most identify who the world champion was, you know, and I knew from reading the Aftermags that Bob Backlund was the champion. I knew Nick Bockwinkel was the AWA champion, but, you know, I felt like my world champion was whoever was holding the 10 pounds of gold, Sweet Charlotte. And it was that way, you know, that was the chase through the 80s, you know, was that belt, you know, whether it was, you know, Dusty Rhodes chasing Ric Flair or Flair defending it around the world. You know, you look at those flags in Canada, Australia, Mexico, Japan, USA, and then you look at Flair's travel schedule in a year like 1984. It's just stupid. He was legit a world's champion. You know, a week in Florida, a week in Georgia, a week in Texas, a week in St. Louis, a week in Japan. I mean, it was what it said that it purported to be.
All right, Derek Jones, when you see this belt, it was obviously on your list as well. Who do you think of when you look at this title?
So, you know, what you guys are talking about, I've been able to go back and relive an experience, but I wasn't alive when it was happening. You know, I just wasn't. Sorry, Steve.
Thanks,
So to me, you know, I have a great appreciation for Flair and Dusty and some of these other guys that have traveled with this belt. But to me, the NWA world title represents a time period in wrestling when I was getting revitalized with wrestling through a new company that was backed by the NWA as an NWA TNA. And to me, I see Jeff Jarrett when I see that title.
Wow.
I can't be mad at him. I cannot be mad at him.
I can't either. You know, an interesting take that you mentioned Harley Race. And of course, Harley Race stands out to me with this belt as well, because I actually own a replica of this, a super deluxe replica of this that was signed by Harley Race. And it was one of 7. It was actually number 2 of 7 in the set that he signed that day. And I got pictures of him signing it. And, you know, after he passed away, like, you know, everyone's like, oh man, you could sell that and make a whole bunch of money, but I still can't let it go because it means so much to me that I've got a piece. I mean, it's kind of like a replica of a piece of history that has the actual cosign on it by Harley Race and Bruce Tharpe from the NWA at the time. But another name that kind of sticks out with this belt, if I was going to not think about all the past, one like new wave name that I would think about when looking at this title would be Adam Pearce.
Oh, I thought you were going to go Nick Aldis.
I mean, you could go Nick Aldis, but Adam Pearce held this belt like a territory guy when there weren't any territories. You know, he made territories. He was I think that his reign as his reigns as NWA World Heavyweight Champion are some of the most underrated reigns of all time. I mean, no one appreciates Adam Pearce for the amazing talent that he is. And we see him on WWE TV each week. And of course, he's just a figurehead. But if you know Adam Pearce, you know what Adam Pearce has accomplished, it's crazy to me how little people know about these reigns.
I thought you were actually going a completely different direction. And if you would have I would have put $100 on that I was going to guess who you were going with, which would have been Shane Douglas.
Well, you know, Shane Douglas definitely comes to mind when we think about this title. This title is synonymous with Shane Douglas's entire career. Him throwing this belt on the ground and basically pissing on it.
What's the provenance of that belt? Where did it go?
After that?
Yeah, after it got thrown in the garbage. Seemed like you would know that.
After it was thrown in the garbage, is the next time that we seen it was on Chris Candido.
Oh,
and then after Chris Candido, we seen it go to eventually went to TNA is where it ended up. But
Dan Severn was in there too. Dan Severn had it for a little while.
Ron Killings had it, right?
What?
Well, Ron Killings had it after it became a TNA champion.
TNA.
Right. Ron Killings had it in TNA.
Yeah, Ron the Truth Killings beat Ken Shamrock for it.
No shit.
Yeah, Ken Shamrock was the very first NWA TNA champion, and Ron Killings beat Ken Shamrock for that belt. And he was an excellent champion, in my opinion. I think it was the greatest moment of our Truth's life.
And honestly, he cut the best promo he's ever cut in his life holding that world title.
Yeah, he sure did.
In the future, you are going to really get to explore this in depth, huh, fellas?
Yeah, we sure will. When we talk about WrestleCade this year, 2021, on Sunday of WrestleCade, we are hosting the TNA Beginnings panel. That means we're going to have a Q&A with the crowd. We're also going to talk to the guys. We've got a lot of people on that panel from the first few years of TNA, and we're going to really dive in. And I can't wait to unleash Derek Jones on this panel, because Derek Jones is the most hardcore TNA fan I've ever
on this panel.
What?
I can't wait to unleash Derek Jones on the world
on WrestleCade. Period.
TV, baby.
That is correct. That is correct. You're going to be on Fight TV, and
you're going to put somebody over, Reznor. Put somebody over.
Oh.
Hey, you're right. We are going to unleash Derek Jones TNA style on a bunch of TNA first and second yearers on Fight TV for WrestleCade.
Tracy's really, really excited about that segment, guys. I got to tell you, when Reznor and I talked to him and what that means to him as a fan and what he wants that to be, he really wants that to pop. He really wants the Fight TV audience and the live audience there with us to get that period of time, the infancy, the beginning of TNA.
And we're going to tell an amazing story, because really there isn't a wrestling company with the same kind of birth story as TNA. TNA has got something very original that we're going to talk about that day, and I absolutely can't wait. Let's go to your second belt on your list, Stephen P. New. Where are we going now?
Let's go to Big Gold, because it kind of flows sequentially. And what I like about this belt is the history. I was watching an avid professional wrestling fan when Big Gold premiered, when Ric Flair brought it out and they replaced, the 10 pounds of gold with Big Gold. And the person I probably think of, I'm not quite sure about the order of this. Don't hold me to it. The person I think of most is the guy that we're going to talk about with the red, white, and blue belt, but Ronnie Garvin, because I can't remember whether Dusty won Big Gold from Flair first or Garvin won Big Gold from Flair first, there was really significant events.
Dusty
in the 80s.
Dusty definitely won it before Garvin did, because
But
Garvin won it in like
I-
88, 87.
87, 88, something like that. But anyway, and then when you think about Big Gold too, 91, Flair shows up in WWF with Bobby the Brain Heenan talking about how the real world's champion. And boys, this is 5 years before the NWO. When you've got that kind of, and I was an adult by this period of time, 91, and you've got that kind of blurring of the lines of reality, like, holy crap, how do they have the NWA World Title on WWF television? There's Bobby the Brain Heenan holding the NWA World Heavyweight Title. So, that was a precursor, that blurring of the lines. And then you guys know, the rest of the history with it, coming into WWE, and that belt meant a lot. When it became a WWE belt, it meant something to guys like Triple H, Edge, John Cena, The Undertaker,
CM Punk.
CM Punk. Holding that belt as the World Heavyweight Champion meant something to guys of the later era of WWE. So one of the things I love about Big Gold too is its longevity.
Well, there's a couple things to unpack there. There's a few other things that happened with this belt that make this belt special. When Ric Flair showed up as the real world's champion in the WWE, first of all, I've got some trivia for you. Does anyone know who actually wrote that story?
Bruce Pritchard.
No.
Jim
Jim Cornette. Jim Cornette ran the real world story in Smoky Mountain Wrestling about 6 months before Ric Flair showed up and did the exact same story. He did the real world's championship story with Chris Candido.
Oh, he came in with the NWA.
No, he did not. He came in with another belt. I think he was calling it the North American World Heavyweight Championship. Don't hold me to that, because I'm not exactly sure which belt it was, but I'm pretty sure it was just a prop so that he could do this real world's championship gimmick. But either way, it was awesome. I got to live through it in Beckley when they would come with Chris Candido and Brian Lee as a tag team, and Chris Candido had that belt, and he kept pushing himself as the real world's champion. And then boom, it happens on WWE. And even as a child, I was like, this is the same story. Like, they're totally ripping off Smoky
Who
Mountain.
was the Smoky Mountain champion
Flair
then?
did like a one shot for Cornette. We need to put that on the list of stuff to talk to Jim about on the next time we interview him, Reznor, because I was listening to one of his podcasts, and he talked about Flair coming to Smoky Mountain like one time, one shot during that. And he was talking to Flair a lot during that time too, because they were both real disenfranchised with what the NWA, what WCW had become.
Ron, real quick, say that again. Who was the Smoky Mountain that was champion?
The dirty white boy was a champion at the time.
Okay.
And then no, wrong. The world champion was Chris Candido's tag team partner Brian Lee at the time.
So it was a tag team that was both champions.
Tracy Smothers beat the dirty white boy for the title. Brian Lee beat Tracy Smothers for the title. Brian Lee was the champion at the time as primetime Brian Lee. Another thing that happened with this belt that I want to mention before you go to your next one is when Flair came back to WCW and he had this belt again, and he's in WCW with this belt, and he loses it to Ravishing Rick Rude. There's a figure four in the middle.
This picture.
Figure four in the middle of the ring. Rick Rude hits him with the brass knuckles, gets the pin, 1, 2, 3, and we think that he's the world champion, but the NWA pulled out of WCW, and they had to turn this belt into the International Championship, robbing Rick Rude of the one chance he had to become the World Heavyweight Champion. That is the most bullshit move ever that happened with this belt. But Big Gold is considered the WCW International Championship at the time, and not the World Heavyweight Wrestling Champion.
Rick Rude he just got fucked all the time, didn't he?
He just got fucked over all the freaking time.
When I see Big Gold, of course, I only think Flair, but absolutely the primetime wrestling segment where Bobby the Brain comes out and Flair comes out and he's just, strutting and turning around with it. It's just, that was just burned.
Can you imagine the thought process going through Jim Herd's mind when he seen Ric Flair walk out onto WWE TV?
There wasn't anything that he could do about it. The belt belonged to Flair.
Well, he told Flair to stick it up his ass. And when he tells Flair to stick this belt up his ass, instead of sticking it up his ass, what he did is took it to the WWE. And that had to burn him up. Steve Barker, we didn't ask you, who do you think of when you see this championship?
I mean, it's the picture that I have. His name is on the plate. And actually, I always thought that even when other motherfuckers had it, that name should probably stay on there.
Yeah,
it's
right.
Ric Flair. Yeah, I don't care about John Cena's name on Big Gold Motherfucker. It's Ric Flair, son.
I love that. I love the Flair version too with that maroon leather.
Oh, you fucked me up, man. That's what I was going to say because it's on my list. The best Big Gold, and right here is where I'm going to put a picture of Derek Jones holding this exact picture or this exact belt. It's got to be on that brown maroon belt. That is the key. That is the best version of the Big Gold.
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, okay, so one thing that I want to say about this belt before we move on is one name that comes to mind that isn't Ric Flair to me when I see this belt is Triple H. Triple H definitely is one of the names that this belt is synonymous with.
So I can't say that I disagree with that. So when I see that belt, I actually think of Sting. But I have the replica Big Gold, and the nameplate says Triple H.
Nice. My Big Gold replica has Ric Flair's plate on it, and it's actually signed by John Cena and Ric Flair. But I would rather it be signed by Triple H and have a Triple H.
That's a big one. Like, because Triple H, is there a lot of like signed Triple H stuff? It doesn't seem like if there's any, big name of the last 20 years that probably hasn't. You would think that hasn't participated in this autograph boom. Is there a lot of Triple H autographs out there for you collector people?
He's a heel most of his career. People didn't want it, but it's good to have.
Yeah. I would love to have it, but I don't have it. Now, Stephen P. New, your third belt on your list. Give it to us.
The Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship. Won't spend a ton of time about it, but I talk a lot about starting to watch wrestling in 1981, 1982. And luckily for me, on WVVA Channel 6, Mid-Atlantic Wrestling and Worldwide Wrestling came on and got to see a lot of really great superstars coming on there. Just too many to mention, but daggone, I loved Jim Crockett Promotions in the early 80s. And this always just kind of reminds me of that simple time. And, Flair wasn't around a lot. Harley Race Strully wasn't around a lot. And, the Mid-Atlantic Championship represented a lot of really great wrestlers fighting for that belt. Jack Briscoe, Ivan Koloff, Roddy Piper,
Jerry Briscoe,
Ricky the Dragon,
Rick Steamboat. I mean, there were a lot of really great wrestlers.
Ric Flair
in that. Flair. Right. If he was in, if he wasn't the world championship, he was in Mid-Atlantic area.
Well, he had the championship. He had this one though, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now,
he sure did. Greg Valentine.
Didn't they put one of these on Ricky Morton?
I can't remember.
I felt like
that's a good question. Has Ricky Morton ever had a singles championship?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, he's been a singles champion before, but I can't remember.
I don't know if it's that title.
He was Mid-Atlantic champion. We'll get back to him in just a little bit as well. But yeah, it's kind of just a reminder of a simpler time, but really great wrestlers, former world champions, future world champions. I watched them fight horseshoe battles. I watched Jack Briscoe and Roddy Piper fight 60 minutes on TV once for the Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship, and it's just kind of a reminder to me of that simpler time of wrestling.
I always assumed that West Virginia was a Mid-Atlantic state, even though we're not on here.
Right, and they were running West Virginia at that time, so that's that.
We're by default Mid-Atlantic area.
Yeah, that's right. And I know that it's politically incorrect to have that stars and bars. That's what the Georgia flag was at the time.
Yes.
You couldn't make a belt. Well, maybe in some parts of the country you could, but you couldn't make a belt in decent politically correct society now that had a Confederate flag on it. But in the early 80s in MidAtlantic in Georgia, the Georgia Tag Team Championships that the Road Warriors came in and won it originally, it had stars and bars on it. So that's the 4 states that were represented by the territory, politically incorrect though it may be.
And the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Championship was held by Ricky Morton, so that is a singles title.
Okay. Hey, Derek, what do you got?
So, we're talking about this Mid-Atlantic Championship, and to me, like I said before, I wasn't alive to watch a lot of this stuff, but I have since went back and revisited as much as I can possibly find. And, we talk about the Intercontinental title nowadays as, the mid-card or the workhorse championship. This belt that Steve is talking about in the world, like the span of professional wrestling, if you wanted a true workhorse title, this is that belt. If you don't know about this title, go back and watch it. Watch as much as you can, read as much as you can. This belt hosted some of the best wrestling, pure wrestling that you'll ever encounter. And, Steve was going through that list of names, but to me, Jerry Briscoe, during his time frame of multiple reigns as the Mid-Atlantic champion, is probably some of the best just grappling matches. And that's what I appreciate that I've ever seen or encountered. It's just fantastic wrestling.
Yeah.
All right, Stephen P. New, we're going to go to your 4th belt. What is your 4th belt on your list?
4th belt, and it means so much to me. If you see it right above my head there, I own it. I own the one. Bought from Ronnie Garvin, who was a partial owner of PAFO. He was a minority owner. A lot of people don't know this, of PAFO's International Championship Wrestling.
This is an outlaw belt?
What's that?
This is an outlaw belt?
Yes, it's an outlaw belt.
That's why I've never seen this before. So this was
this wasn't recognized by anybody except Angelo Pafos.
And what was that promotion called?
ICW.
International Championship Wrestling, ICW.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you guys have never watched any ICW, watch ICW. If you want a DVD burned of ICW wrestling, let me know. I can burn you a couple of DVDs and you watch some really great angles. The very first wrestling match I ever watched in August 1981 was Ronnie Garvin defending this title against the convertible blonde Ricky Starr for the Southeastern Heavyweight Championship. And that's why this belt means so much to me. It was being defended in the first ever professional wrestling match that I ever watched. And that's why that means so much to me. Ronnie Garvin held this as he was always challenging Randy Savage for the ICW World Heavyweight Championship, but he was doing so as the Southeastern Heavyweight Champion. And it provided some stability for that company, for Savage to always be the world champion, Lanny to always be the TV champion, and he had a small piece of the company. Ronnie had the Southeastern Heavyweight Championship. And funny story Ronnie told me at the Applebee's when I bought this belt from him was that this had come from the Knoxville territory split. This had been in the Fuller family, and they had this belt made. And that picture above me was Ronnie winning it in the old Southeastern Championship territory in Knoxville. And when Pafo started running Outlaw in Lexington and Knoxville, Ronnie was a Southeastern champion. He just took the belt with him, and they took him to court. And they protected Kayfabe so much that, they couldn't break Kayfabe in a court case, even though the Fullers wanted their belt back, but they weren't willing to break kayfabe to do that. And Ronnie kind of won under the possessions 9/10 of the law. The Fullers had nothing to prove that the belt belonged to them. So Ronnie got to keep it, and he took it to ICW, and the rest kind of history. He never gave it back to anybody.
Wow. Except for you at an Applebee's.
Right, and Applebee's in Lewisburg,
man.
West Virginia.
That's
Over
bullshit.
Bourbon
Sum
Street.
of money.
You took a fucking Southeastern and world champion to fucking Applebee's, man.
That's
Yeah,
where
man.
he has to go to.
He traded.
I would have.
He
I
traded
would have
himself
taken
for
him
some-
anywhere he wanted to go in Lewisburg, West Virginia. I mean, there's some decent restaurants.
Could have
in
took you to the
Lewisburg.
Greenbrier shit.
Well,
I would have taken him anywhere he has to go.
But he wanted to trade this belt for bourbon steak.
For bourbon steak and a Nolan skillet.
That's what we did. All right,
Were
so
you there, Brian?
I was not. So
Okay.
moving along to the next list of belts, I know that the big gold is shared by another list. So let's talk about Stephen Barker. Stephen Barker, when we go to your favorite belts, I want to see him. Let's talk about it, and we'll start with the big gold. Of course, what made you pick the big gold on your list?
Well, my belts, except for one, because I knew that we'd all have such old school tastes. And I don't know if my fourth one is one of my all-time favorite, but it is definitely my favorite right now. But the big gold, I started watching wrestling with Steve Classic in like 86. So I'd have been like 6, 7 years old. So I'm a few years younger than Mr. New. And the big gold wasn't around yet. But I definitely remember when I was, Steve, do you know when Big Gold came around? 87-ish?
87, I want to say 86 or 87.
So I'm 10 years old, man, and I was into bad guys before tweeners existed, because I knew that Ric Flair was a dastardly fellow. But man, I was from the Southern coal fields, and man, everything about Ric Flair looked like the opposite of where I grew up, and he was the coolest motherfucker in my life when I was 10 years old. And I remember him coming out and talking about how, he had to go to Jim Crockett and let Jim Crockett know that he needed a belt that matched the perfection and an amazingness of himself. And he brought out Big Gold, and Matt Mullins said it earlier, it's gotta be on the maroon or brown strap. And that was the original version of Big Gold.
I always thought about Ric Flair. He's always the bad guy. But I was thinking, how can he really be that bad when he's offering to take all these girls to Disney World to let them ride Space Mountain? It's such a nice thing for him to do, to be a bad guy.
Oldest stride, longest line.
He cared about the women. He wanted to make sure they were having a good time at Disney World.
Yeah. Anyway, on to your second belt. What is
Followed
the
by a helicopter ride.
That's
Oh no!
Oh, we got to leave the helicopter rides out of this one.
Yeah, we do, boy.
Let's go to your second belt. What is your second belt, Steve?
Okay, so my belts, my first three are going to really show the era that I started. My wrestling watching really has about 3 eras. And my first era was, NWA, man, me and Steve Classic. We did not miss Saturdays at 6:05. And as much as I loved Ric Flair, man, I thought Magnum Ta was just as cool. Magnum Ta was kind of the good guy. He was the opposite of Ric Flair, just as flashy, just as good looking, just as shredded, but the good guy version. And he had this, and I know we have another United States belt coming up, but he had this United States belt. And when I think of, starting wrestling and why I still watch wrestling at 44 years old, all these years later, thinking about Magnum TA having this belt. I think this belt is wonderful. And if y'all have noticed, a lot of our favorite belts, and we haven't got to the big one yet, have eagle designs on it. Why do eagle designs work so well on wrestling belts?
I'm telling you, eagle designs really, really mean something to me. Every time there's an eagle, I'm in. So I don't know why. I don't know why that is, but man, eagles do it for me.
But yeah, that's the United States belt, Magnum TA, baby, risky business boys. If you remember when they were trying to, Steve New, remember they were trying to get, because Four Horsemen had their name, and Dusty was always trying to ride on that.
Yeah, Dusty was trying to come up with something,
to rival the
whether it was a
Four Horsemen
Willie
name.
Nelson song or
a
Bob Seger song.
Risky business boys. That's what they were trying to be there for a while.
Right. Tried to be something.
And now that and what's really funny about that is, like, when we were watching that, we didn't realize that Dusty was writing all that. Dusty booked all of that. And now that we see, you know, Dusty was like, man, I want to make sure I get on all this popularity of the full Horseman, baby. And we now
Well, you
see
think about that. Look at the intellectual property violations in that. You've got the CBS logo, the NBC, and the ABC.
Oh God, I didn't notice that.
I mean, seriously, you couldn't get by with that. Now, if you're WWE, you can't get by with stealing the intellectual properties of CBS, NBC.
And what Steve New is talking about is
I have a hard time turning my lawyer brain off. But
what Steve New's talking
as much
about
as I love that belt. And it reminds me of Arn Anderson. I think Arn Anderson's the greatest TV champion of all time.
Well, that was what I was going to say. You know, I was talking about the United States belt just now, but we can go to my third one, which is what you're talking about. For me is this NWA television belt, and you think of it at Arn Anderson, and you can tell that we were really watching at the same time. I think of it as Tully. I think of Tully Blanchard having it forever. And man, you're right. This is just straight up ABC, NBC, CBS being shown on TBS every Saturday at 6:05. Like they didn't, man, you could get by. Well, think about it. Like back then, you just heard Iron Man by fucking, you know, when the Road Warriors came in and they weren't paying shit
you
for
heard
that.
Freebird by Skinnerd. You heard Tom Sawyer by Rush when
who came into Tom Sawyer?
Carey came out at least. So I mean, that was the beautiful thing about wrestling in the 80s was, you know, Saturday night's main event ripped off Obsession by Animotion.
Oh God, yeah.
I mean, they weren't paying Animotion for using that on WWF television, but
not at all.
That was the beautiful thing about wrestling in the 80s was it kind of was under the radar enough where somebody wasn't going to sick their lawyers on, you know, the National Wrestling Alliance.
Because I tell you what, that was a big one for me.
There.
Ah, dear good. That was a big one for me is when I got to see Legion of Doom finally when they moved to WWF. It just wasn't the same. Like, where's Iron Man? You know what I mean? Like, that's the first time I ever heard, you know, as a musician, I'm a huge Black Sabbath fan, and Bill Ward, their drummers, one of my all-time favorite drummers. And that's the first time I ever heard Black Sabbath when I was 9-10 years old. And, you know, they would come out and do those squashes on Saturdays. And man, oh my God, dude, go back and watch a Road Warriors versus Mulkey Brothers, 45 seconds of like third-degree murder. When those guys would come out, dude, there's criminal shit going on during that match. And, you know, when I see like LOD and they're like that music's okay, but it's not fucking, it's not.
Well, in a future House of Kayfabe episode, I really want to do a music special or a series of music specials because I'm so interested in how it was just straight outlaw. Like we just use this music and we don't give a fuck.
Giorgio Moroder never got any money from the Midnight Express.
You know, if you can find my real name, come and sue me. You know,
right. I mean, I love that, but I want to go through and really dive into the music part of it.
So yeah, and did anyone else do this? Like anyone who had brothers and stuff, did you all make belts? Because me and my little brother, we definitely made belts, and you would always run out of the gold and silver crayon. Because you know what I mean? So I definitely remember I made a version of this NWA television belt with my brother and, you know, wrestled him to time limit draws in our shared bedroom. And I definitely, you know, ran out of a silver crayon to finish this
What
belt.
do you guys think about how clean that silver is?
I love it. I love it.
On the red. You know,
I love the red.
Something I want to mention here is, of course, Stephen Barker has his own YouTube channel that he does stuff on all the time. So he is used to being on YouTube, maybe more so than being on stream. So during this segment, I want to make sure that everyone knows the second belt that he was talking about was the NWA United States Championship.
I'm sorry.
And the belt that he's talking about now is the NWA Television Heavyweight Wrestling Championship. And we're of course talking about this because you can see the pictures on YouTube, but you cannot see the pictures if you were just listening in your car. So I want to make sure that everyone knows exactly what belts we're talking about. And if you do want to see these, you can check it out on YouTube at a later date. It will be out on the streaming, the Kayfabe stream. It will be out on the Kayfabe stream before it's on YouTube. So now moving on to your fourth.
Hold on. One thing, real quick. We didn't do it at the beginning. And I want to say, if people are going to the YouTube, you need to like, you need to subscribe, you need to hit that notification bell. You know what we're talking about. Do that.
Yes, baby.
So
Please.
sweet and sultry.
Help us build that that
Please,
algorithm,
baby.
baby.
That is right, baby. Please hit the subscribe button so
Now
that
you
we
may
can,
continue with the fourth belt, if you will.
we will just continue to get funky like a monkey. What is your fourth belt?
Man,
Baby.
you know, because I did go so old school, and I know that me and Steve knew we're definitely going to do more old school, but man, this belt is under my skin. First of all, every time that I have seen this belt defended, it's a 5-star motherfucker. The guy who is I think of when I see this belt doesn't have it anymore, but he is my second. He's my 1B favorite wrestler in the world right now. It's 1A is Dalton Castle, 1B is Walter. And, you know, we've talked about in other episodes about how we just don't like any WWE belts. We're not going to see anybody talk about, except for one from Matt Mullins later, talk about any modern WWF belt or WWE belt, but the United Kingdom Championship. Look at that thing. That is beautiful. It's that same kind of crappy shape that all the other world championships are, but the detail work, it looks like the United Kingdom. That looks like Britain to me. This belt, I'm not a belt mark. I only own Big Gold, but there's a good chance if I go to WrestleCade and just enough Jack Daniels is ingested, there's a good fucking chance I'm coming home with the United Kingdom Championship belt. And I ask you all this, what would be the second best of the new WWE belts? If this, do y'all think this is the best one of modern WWE belts?
This is definitely the best one of modern day belts. And it actually kicks the shit out of the European title.
Oh God, that was a terrible looking belt. Ugh.
The original European title. This kicks the shit out of the original European title. And as far as a second new design, I mean, you'd have to give it to the Intercontinental title by proxy, but it's like, that's not even that great of a belt.
And it's not even that great either. I don't think it is either.
It's not that great, but
I
it's
like the NXT North American Championship.
I like that.
yes. Yeah,
That's
there
good.
you go.
That's second.
That's what we're looking for.
Is that where Derek? Is that what you're going to say?
That's what I'm looking for. That NXT.
Yeah, that's a great. That's a great belt. But this one, I mean, you've got the crown, you've got the castle, you've got a horse on one side and a lion on the other. Man,
Dude, I think it's one of the. I think this is the first time the WWE has made an all-time great design. I love this belt, and man, it's being worn by nothing but killers, by nothing but great fucking wrestlers. Because Tyler Bate was first, right, Derek?
Tyler Bate was first, and that's what I was going to talk about. If you're not familiar with the UK title, you know, Steve talked about Walter, you know, being in his top list. Go back and watch the initial United Kingdom tournament and watch Tyler Bate, especially in that finals match, win this as the very first. Man, that was a battle and a half.
The bruiserweight, right?
Yeah.
Tyler Bate versus
Pete Dunne, and it is a slugfest.
It's a beast of a match, dude. I fucking love that match. And I honestly, man, every time I've seen this defended, it's a top 5. It's a 5-star match. Every Walter, you know, and I'm being just such a big Walter mark because I think he's just fucking amazing. Please don't call him up to the main roster because you're going to fuck up a perfect.
They've already called him up. They've already called him up.
Oh,
his name's Bob Buttcheeks. It's going to be fantastic.
Notice.
He's headed to the top, guys. Just remember, you heard it here first on House of Kayfabe. Bob, the Bruiser Buttcheeks, is going to win some belts.
FKA Walter.
Yes.
Walter. So, I mean, you know, even when Walter lost it, and I'll, you know, get out of the way, but even when Walter lost it, I can't remember that dude's name. It was an amazing match. The Tommaso Ciampa right before that. Dragunov, man,
match was phenomenal.
It's a match of the year candidate. Every time Walter the thing is, man, every time Walter defended this motherfucker, it was a MOTY candidate.
All right, let's open up another page of belts when we're talking about Matt Mullins' picks. Matt Mullins, take us there. Tell us why you chose these 4 belts. Go down the line. What's your first belt?
Well, before we get to the 4, I want to say this. The beautiful part about this podcast and getting to talk to you fellas, and we are such all wrestling nerds, is the nostalgia that comes back as we're talking about this. So I haven't thought, I'm a huge wrestling toy nerd and I love wrestling belts. But until Barker just said, "Did you guys make belts?" I haven't thought about this since I was a little kid, but they were called muscle wrestling figures, and they were just skin toned.
I remember those
miniature figures.
Totally
And
remember them.
they had a belt, and all the wrestling figures fit inside the belt. They had like where the plates would be, you put all the figures, and that's the belt that I used in my federation.
Man, what would you give to still have that right now?
Man, it's crazy. But yeah, we should put that picture up of the muscle miniatures. I have not thought about them since I was little. All right.
You know, wait, real quick. You know what is interesting when you were talking about making belts? I still to this day remember when my mom came home with Christmas wrapping paper, and there was one roll of straight gold shiny paper, and that never made it on any gift because I stole the whole roll and wrapped cardboard. I had tag titles, I had a world title, I had an intercontinental title, had them all. I had a TV title. I was making up titles. I had so much gold paper.
Reynolds wrap and markers works pretty well too. I gotta say that
they sure did.
Man, you all were going next level. I was just crayons.
I remember just a real quick note. Do you remember the cards that were called 4-sport cards?
They had Adam Harris here.
Four sport cards were cards that came out that had basketball, football, hockey, and baseball.
Yeah, I remember.
They were all college cards. Well, I remember that the boxes of those cards were on a super big sale one time, and I ended up buying like 4 or 5 boxes. Well, in these boxes of cards were checklists. And on the back of the card, it was like you had your checklist, and on the back of the card was this big gold embossed awesome logo. So I used to cut belts out of that for my figures and put them on shoestrings. It was a great move. I had like little, it was great. Anyway, let's stop talking about what a dork I am.
And no, we're all dorks. But the problem with the foam title, like I have my son was Jake the Snake last year. I have the foam. I had the WWF one when I was little. But the problem with it was just a sticker on plastic, and it wasn't good enough for me. And that muscle belt, when we see the picture of it, that muscle belt, you'll see that it was like the closest thing that me at 9 years old could have to a real belt. All right, so first I would like to talk about the Intercontinental title. So many greats have held that title. That's just, it's right up there in the top 2 or 3, if not number 1 of all the belts to me. I just think that the time in history with when you got Mr. Perfect and you've got the Honky Tonk Man Warrior beating Honky Tonk for the title, that's like my whole heart. I love that title.
It's so hard to pick somebody you think of. When you look at this belt, you can't just think of one person. There are so many reigns with this. I could easily say this belt makes me think of Mr. Perfect. This belt makes me think of Bret Hart. This belt makes me think of Shawn Michaels. There's so many people. The Rock, Stone Cold. This is the belt of belts when it comes to reigns and people who held it, who went on to be amazing.
And can I say, you threw me way off there, Brian, because kind of like Matt earlier, $100 on the line, you was going to say Dean Douglas.
I also could have said Rick Rude. This belt makes me think of Rick Rude. And this belt has moments like when Dean Douglas got this title for not even winning it, and he still got the belt.
What?
Dean didn't actually Shane didn't actually win this belt. This belt was forfeited to him. This is when Shawn Michaels got beat up by a bunch of Marines or something.
By 75 Marines in a bar.
Yeah, well, from what Shane says, it was 1, but either way,
that's what Cornette says too.
He said it was 1 guy, but either way, yes, this title, it definitely means a lot in a lot of different ways. Another name that comes to mind is Owen Hart. This title means a lot when you think about Owen Hart.
Matt Mullins, what is the belt collar that you like the best?
Probably the Warrior Yellow.
I have the Warrior Yellow, and I was going to say that as well. The Warrior Yellow stands out to me, and I'm not even a big Warrior fan. I never was. But for some reason, that yellow strap just looks good. And it's not just the Warrior strap. It's not just the Warrior strap. It's the Warrior versus Hulk Hogan strap.
That's
It's not like he wore that yellow strap all the time. It was a strap that was made specifically for him to face Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 6, and that's what stands out to me.
I like the white one. I like the white.
The white one's dope
version
too.
of the Intercontinental title, and I can't even remember who had it and when. I just know that I've seen several guys.
it was Matt Cardona.
Cody Rhodes had it when it was white.
Right.
Yeah, because they brought this back. This is, I think what Matt's talking about is this has got to be one of the most popular because it's so popular that during modern WWF, they even brought it back for a short amount of time. That's how I think that had to be a sales thing, right? They had to see that the sales of it was out of this world, and they actually did something for once that we wanted as a fan base and brought back one of the classic belts.
Why would the Intercontinental title not be this forever? Why would the one of the belts that you're about to bring up, why would it not be the world title forever? Why would you not use those beautiful tag team titles for fucking ever? There's no reason.
I don't understand either. I don't understand why we all want those. We love those.
Well, I think part of what it is that maybe a marketing thing. They can say, well, we can sell the new ones, but we can also tap into that nostalgia market. Why sell one version of a belt when you can sell 2 or 3 or 4 versions of a belt?
To your point, is they're coming out with all these special edition belts, and there might be a few exceptions to the rule, but they're all a fucking joke. Like
they make me want to vomit in my own fucking mouth.
Reznor has such harsh feelings and hard feelings about those personalized belts that I'll put up right
terrible.
here.
They're absolutely terrible. They're made by people. It's like they took somebody that wasn't even a wrestling fan and they were like, here's some pictures of Mick Foley. Make a Mankind belt. And they were like, okay, let's go.
Dana Warrior making belts.
Yeah, Dana Warrior. Here, put this Shawn Michaels belt together and make it have a freaking zebra.
Well,
terrible.
Hold on. Let's pause the podcast for a second because I've got to put this Goldberg signature belt in for the cart to Reznor.
No. If they got a Goldberg signature belt, I'm really going to throw up on camera.
Sparklers.
Look at that, Brian. Look how cool that is.
No, it's ugly. I just don't understand why they would even make these belts there. Like, you want to release a belt that everybody's going to buy, go back to all those belts you own from buying so many different companies. You could sell give me the AWA belt. Can I buy the AWA belt instead of your goofy fucking Stone Cold belt? Can I buy can I buy an NWA world title from you instead of maybe an Undertaker title with a purple cross on it in a fucking casket?
Look how cool it is.
No,
give me
only $27 for 12 months, and it's yours, Reznor.
Yeah, dude.
Give me the WCW light heavyweight title over fucking 205 live bullshit. All those titles suck ass.
$310 American. That could be yours, B-Rez.
Man, I'll pay you $310 to never have to see it again. This is the ugliest. The only belt on earth that's uglier than that belt would have to be that fucking Jeff Hardy title from TNA. That was like the ugliest title ever.
The Willow title.
Yeah, honestly, the Diva Championship looked like a prestigious belt next to that one.
That's rough.
Look at that. Look at that.
It looked like the Divas Championship, dude.
It did. It was worse.
That's what I thought when I saw it.
No, wait a minute. Derek Jones, do you own this?
Do not and will not own that Jeff Hardy
Are
title.
those eyeballs cut out? Does that go through the belt?
No, it's just white.
He wears it on his face like a mask. No, I don't know, but he should have. It probably would have worked better. But anyway, back to your list, Matt. Let's go to your next championship. What is the next belt on your list?
Let's go to the most prestigious of my list, I believe, other than the Intercontinental, which would be the Winged Eagle.
Oh, the Winged Eagle.
Look at that, bro. Like, how many people? Okay, right now, how many people in this fucking room own the Winged Eagle belt?
I do.
I've had it, but I've sold it.
Of course, Derek Jones. has
Someone
one.
other than me.
Derek
Damn
Jones
you.
got one.
But the cool thing about the Derek Jones Winged Eagle belt, it is the official House of Kayfabe podcast
Oh,
championship
shit.
belt.
Yeah,
Nice.
got to get a. We'll put a picture of that right here.
Shit, son. That just makes me think. I mean, again, it's the exact same thing that you said about WrestleMania 6 with the Warrior Intercontinental. This makes me think of why I was a Hulkamaniac. Why that when the music hit, that I got chills, and I still at 38 years old am a mark and go back and watch those matches. And why I love pro wrestling is the Winged Eagle.
Of course, the Winged Eagle makes me think of Hulk Hogan. Why would it not? But this Winged Eagle title makes me think of many people. When I see the Winged Eagle title, I think of Yokozuna. I think of Bret Hart. I think of Shawn Michaels. Like Shawn Michaels' boyhood dream story for this championship, it totally got me when I was a kid. I was all about that. So there's so many different people. The Macho Man Randy Savage.
Oh,
The
sorry.
Macho Man Randy Savage.
Ric
stands
Flair.
out with this belt. Ric Flair stands out with this belt.
With a tear in my eye.
Yeah.
So, the famous Sergeant Slaughter ad against Hogan, where he's holding with the Winged Eagle on his shoulder. It has purple leather.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And I don't think that was never. I don't remember ever seeing that in the ring. It was the black leather when he had it in the ring.
No. He the reason why he had the purple leather belt is because he won it from the Warrior, and when he won it from the Warrior, it was on a purple strap.
Okay.
I'm pretty positive that's the reason why he had the purple belt.
Okay. Because I just remember that ad, always seeing that and being like, man, Hogan never wore the purple. But you're right. He got it from the
That's pretty dope. That's pretty cool.
Warrior had it on purple and white, correct?
The Warrior had it on purple. He had it on blue. I mean, he had a lot of different straps for the World Championship.
That's a pretty dope. I've never seen. I don't think I remember this. That's pretty dope.
You clearly one of those to my collection.
On the picture you're showing right now, it clearly says Ultimate Warrior right underneath the WWF logo.
Yep.
So yes, that was originally an Ultimate Warrior thing.
Cool.
I loved this belt when they changed this belt to the Big Eagle. No one was more disappointed than me. And I always expected this to come back. I remember plenty of times when they were like, we're going to unveil a new championship. And I was thinking, they're going to bring it back. They're going to bring it back. And then they take it off and it looked like.
And now it spins.
Oh, it spins now. Yeah, great. I really wanted.
I'm a big font guy. My daughter, Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca. I love you very much. I know you're listening. Rebecca has gotten me into fonts. Look at that really awesome Morton's Steakhouse font on the Winged Eagle. Is that not fantastic?
It sure is. It sure is.
Font nerddom. We did not expect font nerddom today.
Yeah.
There is no better belt in the world than this. This belt means World Heavyweight Champion to me more than any belt could ever mean World Heavyweight Championship to me.
The plates on it, it's perfect. It's a perfect belt.
Now,
Let
when
me
I was
ask a
getting the
question
picture,
for you guys who are fans of this Winged Eagle. This obviously wasn't the belt that Hogan won from the Iron Sheik. You know, that was the green one with the big round plates and things like that.
Right.
How long into Hogan's tenure did Winged Eagle?
I'll tell you when Winged Eagle showed up. Winged Eagle showed up right before WrestleMania 4. So the first person to actually hold this, now the first person to hold it in their hands was Ted DiBiase, even though he was not the champion. So he didn't get to actually hold it because he bought it. Remember, he bought the championship from Andre the Giant. When he purchased the championship, that's when it became the Winged Eagle, and he started carrying the Winged Eagle around, but he wasn't actually the champion. Then the championship was pulled from him, and then then Macho Man won the tournament at WrestleMania 4, and he was the first person to actually, to carry it around.
So Hogan was still carrying the green championship that he won from the Iron Sheik
No,
through.
No, there's one between those.
There's one between those.
Okay.
it looks
Okay.
more like the light heavyweight championship. I can see it in my.
I didn't mean to sidetrack us there. I was just
There's one in between though. You're right.
Here. There it
you
is.
guys talking about.
That's not it. That's the Bruno.
Mm-hmm.
That
That's the Bruno and Billy Graham.
Yeah, that's
and
old.
Backlund.
And hey,
Yeah, that's even older than the green one. But
Okay.
either way, I totally know what you're talking about. But the Eagle Wing definitely was at WrestleMania 4 was when we first seen it pop out after the tournament. Now, well, I mean, and be on someone. Now back to your list, even though we could probably just stop it at the Eagle Wing since it is the greatest belt of all time. But let's talk about the next belt on your list. Go ahead.
okay, so I'll stick with the nostalgia part, and I'll think of. I'm actually going the other direction there, Barker. As I'm going with Ted DiBiase's $1 Million Championship.
That's so gaudy. Oh my goodness.
It's so beautiful.
It is gaudy, but I absolutely loved it. I love getting the Hasbro that had the belt with it. I loved Virgil fighting for it. I loved everything about it. I was stoked when Eli Drake, aka LA Knight, was getting the title, and I was hoping that Ted DiBiase was going to be his manager for his entire career, and they would change his name back.
You know why you were hoping that? Because it made perfect fucking sense. That's why they didn't do it. Because it made perfect sense to push, LA Knight with this title, with the $1 Million Man, would have literally made his career, would have, just signified everything. And
They go the other direction.
no, we can't do that. It makes
That
too
would have
much
been
sense.
a great main event or main roster team up.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that
Eli
Eli Drake with Ted DiBiase carrying the $1 Million Belt on SmackDown or Raw wouldn't be better than 9/10 of the crap they put? It'd be better than 98% of Raw.
And he would be the champion, the world champion right now because of it. It would have launched him into the stratosphere, baby. But they didn't do it because it made too much sense.
This looks better than anything that WWE has right now. This is a better looking belt than everything on the roster, besides the UK belt.
Let me ask you guys.
Can I add something?
Touch this thing? Have any of you ever touched it? A replica of this belt?
No.
You had it, didn't you?
I did have it, and it's a very interesting belt to hold and to touch. I mean, this is a belt
awkward.
that if you were not careful with, you could definitely hurt yourself with messing with this belt.
Do you remember the vignettes when he was having the belt made?
I
He was
do.
Going to the jewelry store.
Yeah, going to the jewelers. That was awesome. Love it.
What were you going to add, Steve?
How heartbreaking it was for those of us when Andre the Giant turned heel. I mean, for those of us who had rooted for Andre, as this lovable giant who couldn't be beaten and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. When he turned heel and, was part of that whole whatever, just it was heartbreaking.
Andre for me, because I was younger, Andre for me was always a heel. Because my first introduction to Andre was post WrestleMania 3. So he was always a heel to me. And to me, it didn't make sense for him to ever be a face. So I could never really see Andre as a face. So I didn't experience the heartbreak that you experienced, because to me, when you've got a giant, of course he's going to be a bad guy. So it didn't even make sense to me for him to even be a good guy.
Yeah, but to be the gentle giant, that was pretty amazing. It was something to watch.
If Adam Harris was here, his heart would be breaking that people are out there that think that Andre the Giant is a heel first. Adam Harris would be heartbroken to hear that there are human beings who think Fezzik is a bad guy.
Well, that's that as far as my introduction to him, that's what my introduction was.
And this belt too. I mean, Virgil completely made his career on defending the belt, and then it had all our heartstrings, and we were all rooting for Virgil. At that time, I think so. I mean, that's. I mean, I think that was.
I remember that. I remember him. You know, everybody cheering for Virgil at the time. Everybody wanted to see Virgil come up and beat Ted DiBiase.
I remember his Beetlejuice pants.
Right.
He had the Beetlejuice pants, and his name was Virgil.
That's an interesting lineage. I mean, if you think about it, Ted DiBiase, Virgil, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and then now LA Knight.
Yeah, right.
A pretty interesting lineage for a title. All right, so let's move on to number 4.
Oh, real quick before you go, hold on. This came from a Jim Cornette episode that Ted DiBiase said that he made more money afterwards taking pictures with this belt. This belt made him a lot of money because everybody wanted to get their picture taken with the $1 million belt.
You know who designed this belt, right? This is completely their idea and their brainchild.
Reggie Parks.
Vince McMahon.
Wow.
Vince McMahon. It was actually his gimmick. He was going to be, if he was going to be a wrestler, he was going to be the $1 million man. He wrote that for himself, and then gave it to Ted DiBiase. So number 4, your belts on your list here
is much like Derek Jones. I wasn't alive when this belt was big time, but in going back and reliving those moments and the beauty of YouTube and going back and watching it. And now they've brought a version back into NWA, and I absolutely love it, is the Mid-Atlantic United States Championship, which is right here on my Stan Hansen Remco figure. And I just love that. I just love that belt.
It's the most unique belt that we've seen. It's the most unique of the bunch.
I mean, I think just, having the United States cut out like that on it as a plate is awesome.
I have to say, this kind of looks like something that you would have made when you were a child.
Yeah.
That's why I love it so much.
Where is Hawaii? I noticed that Alaska is the western half of the United States, complete with polar bears and caribou, and Hawaii's nowhere to be found.
It wouldn't have taken
all over the Maldives.
It wouldn't have took much, just a few specks down there.
A splackling of gold there, down on the bottom beneath Arizona where Hawaii normally goes.
No. Hawaii's actually on the back of this belt. They just ran out of space.
Man, whoever cut this out, you could tell this was made by hand and not with a CNC machine, because boy, this is a what would you call that? A stylized version of the United States of America.
Oh.
Yeah. But I mean, that the leather, the gator, whatever it is.
Oh yeah, that's exotic. That's caiman or alligator, crocodile, something. It's exotic leather. It's beautiful.
Love it.
So so Matt, who is it right now that makes you think of this?
Trevor Murdoch.
There you go.
Trevor Murdoch has it, and that was a great match. I love him anyway because he's our modern day Stan Hansen, I believe. So I think it's awesome that what NWA is currently doing, and I like the product, and so I'm stoked that they have a version of this belt back.
Yeah, that is awesome. Very, very
and
awesome.
Like Derek was talking about with the Mid-Atlantic title, lots of really great wrestlers held this title. You see pictures of Ric Flair, Greg Valentine,
Ricky the Dragon.
So just to kind of correct a little bit, Trevor Murdoch had this. Trevor Murdoch is actually now your NBA World Champion
right now.
He beat Nick Aldis.
That's right.
James Storm had this for a little while too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is another old school belt that's, active on YouTube even.
Aaron Stevens was a great holder of this title.
I love the Damian Sandow.
I love him. Man, dude, God, Damian Sandow was great when he was. That's the only time The Miz was ever interesting. When he had Damian Sandow.
And you know what? It's funny that everybody was like, oh, man, if they would just let Damian Sandow do what he wants to do, if they would just let him do what he wants to do. And then Impact was like, you know what? We're going to hire Damian Sandow and we're going to let him do what he wants to do. And then he did what he wants to do, and it fucking sucked.
What was he in Impact? I don't know that.
But
what was he in, Derek, what was Damian Sandow in Impact? What was that about?
He was Aaron Stevens, and he was just trying to be different, and he's not good at different. He's good at scripted.
Well, I tell you what, he made a hell of a Miz. Damien Mizdow was over, brother.
Yeah, it
He
was.
was a super talented guy. He just didn't have really good ideas of his own, but everyone thought he was gonna. That was
He
the
tried to be a very serious version of himself in Impact, and it's not what we're used to. It's not what we like. We like the comic relief.
Silence.
Mm.
Dude, I thought all of those vignettes coming up was great. I loved how he had the towel around the neck gimmick and the old school robe. I thought he was wonderful, man. Like
He was great, but then they let him do what he wanted to do, and he ruined it all. But anyway, I would like to share my 4 belts with you guys, if that's okay. I've got 4 belts here, and 2 of them we've already discussed. So those are the 2 I'll bring up first. Of course, the Eagle Wing Championship is my favorite belt of all time, and I have went into lengthy details about why I love this so much, and I could continue talking about it for the next 3 hours if you really wanted me to, but we've already discussed it, so I will just say it's the greatest belt of all time. And then we slide over to the Intercontinental Championship. The Intercontinental Championship means so much to me because it was the launch pad for so many great world heavyweight champions to start right there with the Intercontinental title. And thinking about my favorite Intercontinental Championship match of all time, which is Mr. Perfect versus Bret Hart. There's just so many matches that go right with the Intercontinental Championship and why it stands out to me as one of the greatest belts ever created. But then I will move to a belt that we have not mentioned, and the one man that stands out for the WCW United States Championship is Rick Rude. Now, you could say Sting. Sting was a great WCW United States champion. You could even say Steve Austin. Steve Austin was a great WCW United States champion. But to me, when I think about the WCW United States title, I think of one man, and that is Rick Rude. And the fact that it's also got an eagle right slap dab in the motherfucking middle. I love me some eagles, and that eagle.
To our international viewers and listeners, if you didn't know, the bald eagle is the national bird of the United States of America. Hence, all of the eagles on all of the United States championships.
Are there people in do people in other countries not know that about us?
I mean, they better.
I mean, I was thinking like if you're thinking about state birds, like I have no idea what some other state's bird is. Like if we were talking about Texas, I don't know what Texas's bird is. Is that kind of how like it is?
It's a Roadrunner.
Is it? Well, shit, you guys know more than I do about fucking state birds. But
What's West Virginia's state bird, Brian?
It's a cardinal, isn't it?
There you go.
See, I know my own state. I don't know what the bird is around in Florida. I'm here in Florida. I don't know what the fucking bird is. It's probably one of them that won't.
You don't think it's a flamingo?
It might be. It also might
Probably
be
a meth pipe.
I'll tell you what, there's some really fucking big, huge, like ugly gray birds that are constantly walking around my yard, and they're taller than me and try to punk me out when I'm going to my car. They might be the state bird, and it might be by dominance. I'm not sure. But,
have you ever been worried going to your car over these birds?
No, I've actually thought in my mind about how hard I would hit it if it attacked me. But luckily it has not attacked me yet, so I have not had to punch this bird in the face. But I've thought about,
listen, I need Allison to take her phone and film you going from your front door to your car every day until we get video proof of one of these big fucking cranes pecking your bald head on your way to work at 7:30 in the morning.
These are not cranes. I have no idea what the fuck they are, but they're not cranes, and they are very clotheslineable. I think I could clothesline the shit out of one of these birds. So if one of these birds gets out of line, they're going to get a Russian sickle from me right there in the front yard.
Or you know what else you could give that bird? You could give that bird a spear. And a spear was also the finishing maneuver to Bill Goldberg. And Bill Goldberg was also possibly the greatest holder of this WCW United States Heavyweight Wrestling Champion.
All right,
so he held this title for a total of about a week and a half before they fed him Hulk Hogan. I don't even want to mention Goldberg on this title. I don't think.
Dude, honestly,
going to take my authority as a wrestling fan to remove this title from Bill Goldberg right now.
He's going to rewrite the history books, folks.
He's going to go to all the Google images that has Goldberg holding this belt and like buy it and then delete it from history so no one can see it.
I'm going to take all those photos and Photoshop a giant turd around his waist, and I'll put all those back on the internet.
Reznor turned a whole different shade as we were mentioning Goldberg.
Yeah,
So,
it makes me want to vomit.
I'm sorry. I got to start it off on birds and the image of.
I mean, look, dude. I mean, and honestly, when I think of this title, I do think of this is the thing that got Goldberg over.
Okay, I'm glad that you think that. No one else gives a flying fuck. It's a terrible title. It's a terrible title reign.
Derek's trying to put us back on track.
Listen, before Brian's head explodes and becomes bird food, let's talk about the only bird that mattered, and it was Raven. Raven wore that title best, period.
Thank you.
I get down with that.
Thank you, Derek Jones.
Like that segue, that little transition?
I do have to disagree with you though, because Raven doesn't get to be one of the greatest U.S. champions because Goldberg ran through his reign for no reason and took it away from him. But before we talk about this at length and my head explodes, like you said, let's move to my fourth championship. And this championship means a lot to me because this championship just sums up my entire teenage years. When it comes to a 15-year-old Brian Reznor, there is no belt in the world that means more than the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. I'm talking about the one that has the barbed wire bats on it and the barbed wire on the letters, and it's just beautiful. This belt, and when you think about it, you can put Shane Douglas with this belt. You can put Justin Credible with this belt. You can put Taz with this belt. This belt means Raven, Tommy Dreamer. This belt means so much in the world of hardcore. I love this belt. I love the design. I love the feel of it. I love the way it looks on people. It's just a great belt, and I would love to get your guys' opinion on it. I know that not all of you are huge ECW fans. I know Matt Mullins is. Derek Jones is a little bit too young for ECW. Stephen P. New, you're not really that big of an ECW fan.
I disliked ECW in the mid-90s. I thought ECW was taking wrestling in a direction I didn't want professional wrestling to go. And I thought it was a land for misfit toys. I thought it was a place where guys who couldn't wrestle elsewhere, that's where they went to wrestle for a guy who was the north of the Mason-Dixon line wannabe Jim Cornette.
Oh, wow. I really liked this comment until you got to the end. Please shut the fuck up about that.
Man, I got to go with Reznor on this. You know, I wasn't a big ECW guy.
Now,
I went back and watched a bunch, but man, look, man, Paul Heyman and Jim Cornette has said it. He is Bizarro World Jim Cornette. He's as every bit as a genius.
I'm telling you what I thought in the mid-90s.
Okay.
When I'm getting back in, I'm in law school. I'm consuming a lot of the pro wrestling on the message boards and AOL, and I'm watching the Monday Night Wars and that kind of stuff. ECW just kind of seemed like this something that didn't need to be there. I'm telling you what I'm thinking in the 90s. That is as opposed to looking back at in reality what it was. You know, that's kind of the difference in, you know, someone saying, well, I wasn't alive in 1982, so I didn't get to watch MidAtlantic wrestling in real time. Well, I wasn't watching ECW in real time in 96, 97, 98. But boy, go back and watch it, and you've got a great appreciation for Paulie's booking, what some of those guys were doing. And sure, were they a little bit undersized or what have you? Yeah. And then they got the chance to show themselves on larger stages, and they knocked it out of the park.
Or what about the ring work, the workmanship of one Shane Douglas? Shane Douglas took this title and made it a world title, not only by throwing down the NWA world title, but in work rate. Shane Douglas took this championship and made something of not only the whole company, but of himself. I remember when I first got my very first ECW tape and seeing that Shane Douglas was in the main event. And it was like, oh, that's the dude from WCW that was tagging up with Ricky Steamboat, and here he is in this company, and he's fighting for the title. And I was sold from there on out. I remember we traded tapes like they were gold bricks. I remember driving all the way to Pittsburgh to pick up a VHS tape with duct tape on the front of it that said ECW. I mean, it was just so important to get that stuff, and you couldn't even imagine, like, I mean, YouTube, no, that's not a thing. There's no way to find this footage. You've got to go and search.
There wasn't any streaming. You could not. Those of you who didn't have AOL or GeoCities websites or any of the other stuff that made the internet from 95 to 2000 so wonderful, there was no such thing. Seriously, on a fucking 14.4 or 28.8 baud dial-up modem, you think you're going to stream? Let me tell you two things. Jack and shit, ain't neither one of them going to show you a wrestling match on a dial-up internet modem in 1997.
So Brian, how did you find out about ECW? Because it wasn't on your TV, right?
I luckily had a cousin that had tapes, and that's where I got him. He was like, "Hey, I got these. You want to check this stuff out? It's way better than that shit you're watching on TV." And I'm like, "What?"
Now, let me tell you what they did well. They sold pay-per-views well, because like if you looked on your cable system or you went down and you got the box to watch WWF and WCW pay-per-views and you took that box back to your house, ECW did a hell of a great job selling pay-per-views.
Yeah, they sure did. And you know, if you're not familiar with ECW or you weren't an ECW fan, the best thing that I can tell you to do is to go, and this is one thing, you know, when the WWE does something right, they really do it right. Now, when they do it wrong, the goddamn shit the bed, and we all know that. But when they do something right, it is perfect. And one of the perfect things that they did was the documentary, The Rise and Fall of ECW. The Rise and Fall of ECW is one of the greatest WWE DVDs, in my opinion, they ever produced. And the fact that ECW not only could come out with a DVD after its death and sell like more DVDs than anything else, and then they bring a pay-per-view back. The WWE invested to bring a ECW pay-per-view back. That is unheard of. They own all the WCW pay-per-views, and they just started doing them this year or something, like in the last few years. We never get to see something resurrected like that. The WWE not only resurrected the pay-per-view, it resurrected another pay-per-view, and from that pay-per-view, they resurrected the entire fucking brand. Now, they totally ruined it and didn't do it right, like they screw up almost everything else, but they still did it. That shows the popularity and the power that ECW has still and had then. To me, when you see somebody get hit brutally with a chair and the audience in 2021 starts chanting ECW, ECW, that brings a fire in my chest, because it means so much to me for that memory to continue to live all the way into 2021 when this company died 20 years ago.
And I think Steve was right when he said it was the island of misfit toys. But to us, as ninth graders, we absolutely was that. But it was like we were part of the underground.
Yeah, we were a part of that island. We were on that island.
We were on that island. So I can tell you, I can remember. I'm a lot of things that are negative, but the one thing that I am positive is my memory is great from growing up. And I remember Brian Reznor bringing me the Barely Legal tape, and I watched it at my house. My parents, how I had ECW, and I know that Reznor probably doesn't remember this, but my parents had a DirecTV scrambled card that you get all the channels.
I do remember this.
And at 2:00 in the morning, it aired all the ECW shows, and I would put a tape in and tape it and bring it to school the next day and give it to my friends. And so we were the distributors of ECW in Beckley, West Virginia.
Yeah, we passed it around, and that's funny because there were a ton of ECW fans in West Virginia, and we didn't have any access to it. That means that those fans were literally beating the pavement until ECW came out. That's we searched and we scoured the earth for any bit of ECW we could possibly find.
Debbie, my mother Debbie is a saint, and she is the sole distributor of ECW without any knowledge whatsoever.
She didn't even know.
So
The
Brian,
statute, by the way, Matt, the statute has run on those illegal DirecTV decoders that you and so many of my friends and family in West Virginia had in the 90s.
so Brian, I guess I'm going to do the Derek gimmick here. Can I assume who you think of? Actually, it's easier to do this. Who is the second person that you think of when you think of the ECW World Championship? Because we all know
I would say the first, second, and third person I would think of is Shane Douglas. Shane Douglas, I just can't even. I mean, if you're gonna think of somebody else, it's gonna be Taz.
Yeah, that's what I think of.
And I'm not even a huge Taz fan. I wasn't a Taz fan then. I'm not a Taz fan now. I've never been a Taz fan, but Taz definitely would another person that I would mention would be Mike Awesome.
I would say Mike Awesome too, and Bam Bam.
Oh, Bam Bam as well. Bam Bam didn't hold it as long, but Mike Awesome definitely stands out to me. And another person that stands out is the man who held this title all the way till the end, and that's Rhino. Rhino had this belt, and he wouldn't even let it go. Like I remember him describing, he's like, when ECW ended, I still had the belt, and I still considered myself the world champion, and I was just waiting on a phone call for somebody to tell me that I was going to an ECW show, and it never happened because it was over.
Aww.
So I do think of Rhino as well. I also think of Just Incredible. Really, honestly, I think of everybody who ever held this because it really means that much.
Did Raven?
Yeah, of course.
Sabu?
Sandman, Sabu. Yeah.
So
RVD?
RVD?
Rob Van Dam did not have it until the new ECW.
That's what I
But RVD did have
The
what I think is a great fucking belt, and that is their television belt.
I like the television belt too.
I think that's a good looking belt.
God, I love Rob Van Dam.
I do too. And man, hey, dude, RVD is the baby face of baby faces right now, being the only person that had like any kind of morals when it came to the air ride from hell, the fucking plane ride from hell, right?
I can 100% remember sending my money. My dad was living in Chicago. I would have been 15 years old, sending my money to get RVD 420. I just smoked your ass t-shirt, and it never fucking came. Thanks, Bubba Ray. I know you got my fucking money. No, but I remember doing that. Like that's some of my favorite memories are those ECW days.
Yeah, see the television title down there at the bottom. Look at this one here, the one that looks like the winged eagle. That is the original Rob Van Dam television ECW.
Well, that's just the winged eagle.
Yeah. Well, that's something interesting about
That's
ECW.
the same Morton's font and everything.
Dude,
That's what I'm saying.
The same Morton's font.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This is a very interesting part about the ECW titles. When ECW was running at this time, they had a television title that looked like the winged eagle, and then they had tag titles that looked like the Intercontinental belts. If you look at the ECW tag titles, they actually resemble the Intercontinental titles. If you take a look at them here, you will see.
Oh my God. Gimmick infringement.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Whoa.
I remember that.
I remember the Eliminators having those titles, and it looked just like the Intercontinental titles, straight up.
Hey,
I like the FTW title too.
Oh, the FTW title is awesome. I love Taz. Taz is one of my all-time favorites. Actually, on the last band that I was in that had a website, Matt, it was quiet. When I joined, they were like, "Hey, we want you to do your bio," and they didn't really know me from Adam. I'm just like the new guy, and they was like, "Email us your bio," and they wanted to be like, Steve hails from fucking blah blah blah, and study music, blah blah blah. Who gives a fuck? My bio just said 6'1", 205, the human suplex machine. And my lead singer's like, "Is this a joke?" I was like, "Just print it. Just put it up, motherfucker." Because here's how great Taz is and how much of a genius Paul Heyman is. Kurt Angle, or somebody tells the story that when Taz came in to the WWE, or F at the time, his first match was with Kurt Angle. And Kurt Angle goes up to one of the bookers and says, what if Taz tries to shoot? And whoever it was like, dude, Taz is like 6. And the fact that Paul Heyman had made him come off so dangerous that probably the most dangerous man that WWE's ever had, Kurt Angle, who can tie up anyone in the world, including Brock Lesnar, in a shoot match that did happen. He was worried that Taz, who they tried to, legitimize that he did have like a judo background. Is that right, Brian? Like a judo.
I mean, that's they were kind of pushing him as like an MMA fighter before MMA was even huge.
So that's how genius Paul Heyman was, is he had Kurt Angle worried that
Right.
Taz was going to come in and try to shoot on him. That story right there shows you how much of a
Cornette's
genius
point,
Paul
it just
Heyman
shows
is.
you what a great liar Paul Heyman is.
Well, okay.
Yeah,
Is it
he's a
wrestling?
great liar that he can tell you some round 5'6" guy
Yeah.
can take out an Olympic gold medalist. Yeah, I believe that.
And you know what it was? I think it was Gerald Briscoe who would completely understand the ability that Kurt Angle has, being a shoot wrestler himself. And I think it was Gerald Briscoe who was like, nobody's going to try to shoot on you, Kurt. You're a fucking gold medalist, world champion wrestler. You don't have to worry about it. But that's how Taz's reputation was. And he's
Derek, do you have any
man.
strong feelings about the ECW title or that promotion?
I mean, I have a lot of feelings about it. I mean, we can start with one. The FTW title is garbage. Looks garbage, is garbage. Let's keep moving on. Anyway.
Oh, come on.
So, before the title that Brian showed with the barbed wire bats and everything else like that, if you want to think of those guys, I mean, to me, the story of Mikey Whipwreck was great. I mean, I know that's not kind of the direction we're looking at, but Raven, to me, Raven is the ECW World Champion.
Interesting. So to you, Raven just stands out as the champ.
Raven's the man, and he's the reason I watched ECW. He's the reason I transitioned that way. I have a high appreciation for Raven and pretty much everything that he's done.
Yeah, I can see that. I tell you what, the only thing that I don't have appreciation of what Raven has done is when he cut that ridiculous fart in your car, Matt Mullins.
Man,
Dude.
fuck him.
Real quick.
Tell that story real quick.
Yeah, please tell the story real quick.
So Reznor promotes the show at the Raleigh County Convention Center, and we had all kinds of great people. We won't have to go into the whole thing, but the Rise and Fall of ECW DVD had just came out. I'm just already at the Armory early because I'm a mark, and Reznor runs over to me and he says, "Hey, we've left Raven at the Ramada Inn. Can you go get him? We don't have anybody to go get him." I'm like, fuck yeah, definitely going to go get Raven. So you can't make, my whole life is a sitcom. I have a Tommy Dreamer, Innovator of Violence t-shirt on. I drive my 1998 Chevy Blazer to the Ramada Inn. As I pull up, your little brother actually rode with me.
Yep.
Pull up to the Ramada Inn. Raven's out front, and he has like the Bluetooth cell phone thing that like comes all the way around, and he's talking. And as I get out of the car, he just kind of motions at the bag, like for me to put him in the bag. So no big deal though. I tell Rezzy's brother to get in the back, throw Raven's suitcases in the very back of my Blazer. He gets in. He's talking the entire way, and like several times because I had the DVD sitting in my middle console, and so I was just going to interrupt and say, "Hey man, I'm just a huge fan." And he's talking, and then all of a sudden he says, yeah, Mick, you know what, Mick, you're right." And I'm like, oh shit, he's talking to Mick Foley. So then I'm getting nervous. I'm like, I can't interrupt him. So we get all the way to the Armory, and we're about to pull in, and I was just waiting. And he's like, "All right, Mick, we'll talk to you later." And he hangs up the phone. As soon as he hangs up the phone, I open my mouth to say, "I'm a huge fan." And I go, and Raven lets this enormous fart, like sulfuric egg. He has a lot of dairy in his diet. It immediately went my eyes began to tear up, and all I could do was taste it because I'd taken this gasp of air to tell him how much I appreciated him. And I look at him and go, God damn, Raven. And he just goes, impressive. And then gets out of my fucking car. And that was the only thing he said to me was impressive. And then he got his bags out. And that was
Are you saying that Scotty Levy's diet is not kosher?
He eats a lot of pickled things. Somebody hurt him in the stomach a long time ago because his shit is not right. And I'm telling you right now, I had to sell that car. And
I'm going to tell you something right now. This is a teaser for a future episode because I'm not going to go into this entire story because it would totally take up a whole nother episode. But one day I am going to tell the entire story of this event on this podcast. And it has some really key people in it. And I'm actually pretty worried that X-Pac will probably sue me when I do this. But I have a lawyer, so it's okay. It's okay that I can talk about it. Also, David Flair is in that story, and he probably wouldn't be too happy about me telling it either. But I am going to tell it one day, and it includes Raven almost punching me in the face. So it's a story that
it's almost. We need to recreate that card. Brian Reznor, the House of Kayfabe, and All Star Wrestling present the recreation of Superior Radio, Superior Wrestling.
Actually, it was actually shady. This was a shady show.
If David Flair was there, I'm sure it was.
Oh, Shady was a part of this, and it was definitely an interesting night that involves a lot of craziness. It ends with a whole parking lot full of cops, and there's tons of cocaine involved. We'll tell that story.
The best part of the event, not to go too deep into it, but is the unbreakable table. They actually, the Armory's tables were from the 50s, and they
were Army.
Yeah. They pull they pull one of the tables up into the ring, and they can't break the fucking thing. And it just goes on and on and on. And it was like everybody breaks kayfabe trying to break the table. They end up having to get one of the DJs from WTNJ or something to throw.
One of the parts of the story, I don't know how many of you have watched the Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view. The Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view where Jake was so fucking drunk that they had to turn the main event into a tag team match.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that same scenario happened at this show. So we definitely have to have an episode about this show one day soon. But before we get out of here, I want to mention a couple of belts that didn't make our lists. We went through, we talked about all the belts that are on our lists. So let's talk about some free balling ideas. What other belts would you like to mention on this show before we get out of here?
The HBK World Heavyweight Title, the Specialty Winged Eagle with the dope ass red and black stripes.
This is like the biggest slap in the face to the greatest championship of all time.
He's making a lot of money off this. You should be glad.
It shouldn't be for sale. It should not be for sale at all. If they want to make specialty belts, they should be the belt that was on the line and create a box that is specialty for the belt to sit in.
Out of modern belts, I would say the Daniel Bryan eco-friendly belt is one of them. I love that belt. I love it. I think that they robbed him of that angle going away from it too soon because he could have ran with that for a lot longer.
Oh yeah,
that would be mine too. I think that this character had legs. I'm sorry, Jim Cornette. This gimmick had legs. Dude, it was one of those gimmicks that could have been over in Portland and booed out of the building in Florida.
I was just getting ready to say the same thing, Barker. And I love gimmicks like that, where in some places,
we the people.
Some places, we the people is going to get booed. In, Alabama, we the people is going to get cheered.
Right. Yeah. And we live in a world that there's full of folks that are vegan, and having that angle was a super cool thing that there's not too many things that we haven't seen in the wrestling business, and that at a championship level, we hadn't really seen that angle. And I think that that's where guys like Vince McMahon
and 60, 70, 80-year-old men are out of touch. When they were growing up, it was easy to have bad guys because bad guys were foreigners. Bad guys were guys who didn't look or sound or whatever like us, or big behemoths or whatever. And that's who your heels were. What they don't understand right now is this whole dichotomy of an environmentalist is a heel in certain parts of this country. Some, redneck conservative guy, is going to be a heel in other parts of the country or whatever, but they don't understand that mentality of, what makes, that's somebody's hero, and it's not uniform across the board. And you're not getting cookie cutter good guy, bad guy stories anymore. You kind of got to work a little harder for that.
And the thing is, we knew that Daniel Bryan's like that. We know that he has been a vegetarian in the past. I'm pretty sure he's not anymore. He's got too good of a physical build to still be a vegetarian. But we knew that it worked for him. We knew it was real, right? And dude, look, when he was like cutting those promos in the concession stands, a lot of that shit was right. Y'all are fat. You're fucking smashing your face with fucking, Snickers bars and fucking pizza, right? So he was telling the truth, and it was fucking wonderful. I think it's some of the best work that he ever did.
I loved the gimmick, but this belt is fucking god ugly.
Well, first of all, as a woodworker, I would like to let's break this belt down here. Right here on the back part, that is a really nice piece of walnut. That's beautiful walnut. Up here, we got some white oak. That's beautiful white oak. This is an American as you can get from a belt, sir. Hemp.
Right,
we've got hemp.
And you've got the
that's not burlap.
and
That's
the
hemp.
white stones.
Oh, it's so beautiful. There's a good chance that I'm gonna, if I get too drunk at WrestleCade, this motherfucker's gonna come home with me too.
You know what? I honestly
somebody guard my wallet, please.
I will honestly believe that you are expecting way more out of the belt selection that's going to be at WrestleCade this year. I could be wrong, but you know who's going to find out? Who's going to find out is Matt Mullins, Derek Jones, and Adam Harris as they scour the grounds of WrestleCade trying to find the greatest wrestling collectibles that are available. So maybe, just maybe, you will see Derek Jones, Matt Mullins, and Adam Harris track this belt down for your drunk ass, Stephen Barker, so you can wear it home.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
That's what we can hope. Now, a belt that I'd like to bring up as one of the side belts that really, really stands out to me is the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Championship. I would love to have this belt. I've never had the opportunity to buy this belt, but man, if it's at WrestleCade, I might bring it home myself.
It's in Louisville, Kentucky.
I love the Smoky Mountain Championship.
That's dope.
It was great, and the name, like, even though Brian Lee should stand out as my favorite because he was my favorite champion of Smoky Mountain, but this belt to me, Dirty White Boy is all I see. When I see this, it's Tony Anthony. That's who I see with this championship.
Bobby Blaze can't get no love.
Bobby Blaze gets no love from me.
Love Bobby Blaze.
Dirty White Boy was the Smoky Mountain champion to me.
And if you notice what Jimmy did there, you've got West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina.
I got to touch it one time when I was a kid. I got to touch this belt because Dirty White Boy was doing a signing, even though he was a heel, which was kind of weird. And I got to actually touch that belt, which was pretty awesome. A 10-year-old me was definitely extremely excited about that.
Derek, what's yours?
I don't have a standby belt. I told you my favorite belts. Now, if you want to go the other direction with that, we can talk about the absolute worst belts in professional wrestling history.
Let's see it. What are we talking about?
The absolute worst belt in professional wrestling history, not only because of the look, not only because of the plates and the style and the design, but the unveiling after they built this up in our minds to be a great championship title is the 24/7 championship.
Oh, that's a very ugly belt.
Like they had this ceremony and they brought it out in this velvet bag.
It looked like a platter.
That's
oh my god,
god awful, man. You're right. Good man. Oh, that's
I
brutal.
still don't think it looks worse than the friggin' Jeff Hardy belt. The Jeff Hardy belt to me is the worst belt of all time.
But look how thin that strap is as Foley's just holding it. He can almost close his hands all the way around just the side plate.
Yeah,
That's
it's pretty
disgusting.
terrible. Pretty terrible belt.
And one of my side belts is, as you guys have heard before on this show, USA Network, before All American Wrestling, WWF started airing at noon on Sundays on USA Network. God, the 80s were fantastic, guys. I'm telling you, the 80s were absolutely fantastic because on Sunday morning, you could wake up and you could watch a bunch of really great cartoons on USA Cartoon Express. So you're watching a bunch of old school Hanna-Barbera cartoons. And then at noon, on popped WWF All American Wrestling. And what Vince was doing at that time in like late 83, 84 was he was having other promoters send him tapes. And he was like, I'll show your wrestling on this national TV. And all he was doing, he was really scouting their territories for their best wrestlers so he could invite them to the WWF and sign them and steal them away from their territory. That's how he got JYD. But anyway, before that period of time, in 82 and 83, Joe Blanchard's Southwest Championship Wrestling aired at 11 a.m. on USA Network. And you talk about a kid at Christmas is all of a sudden, I'm getting to watch wrestling from Texas on USA Network every Sunday morning on at 11 a.m. And lo and behold, who do I start watching? And who is the Southwestern Heavyweight Champion but one Tully Blanchard? I didn't know he was the promoter's son at the time. I just thought he was this cocky ass guy from Texas who said he was the greatest champion in Texas history and da-da-da-da-da. And he teamed with this really great, really cocky young guy named Gino Hernandez. And anyway, look at this belt. It looks like a cow's ass. This looks, is there any of you ever seen anything that looks more Texas? You've got stars that look like a Texas Rangers badge. You've got the state of Texas itself, and the leather looks like straight from Chick-fil-A. That looks like that thing was selling chicken sandwiches earlier in the day today. So
I love that belt.
to make me feel 11 years old again.
I've got two I want to touch on real quick. One would be the AWA.
That's a great belt, man.
AEW
Yes,
World Heavyweight
thank you.
Title is a beautiful belt.
Yes, it is.
Rick Martel on, with that. I love that.
That's what gave Flair the idea for Big Gold, in case you guys didn't know. He felt like that Sweet Charlotte was small in comparison. When he would go to Japan and he'd wrestle Bockwinkel or he'd wrestle Martel, he thought Sweet Charlotte was small in comparison.
I was going to say the person that comes to mind when I see this belt is definitely Nick Bockwinkel.
Man, I could do Rick Martel because I was, AWA is part of my watching history as a kid because it was on
What's the
ESPN.
date on that PWI that you're looking at there, Matt?
What was that?
What's the date? Is that 85?
That is February 1985, sir.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah, I definitely watched a lot of AWA because remember when ESPN had it, it was kind of the waning days of the AWA, but they were always coming from like from Vegas.
The Showboat in Las Vegas
Showboat in Las Vegas
is where they recorded AWA TV for a long time.
and where I saw the Rockers for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Another teaser for a future House of Kayfabe show. We were going to talk about the AWA last champion, which was Larry Zbyszko, and how the AWA was hijacked by another guy who claimed to be a Gagne that wasn't a Gagne. And we seen a lot of interesting things happen with that. We want to tell that story one day. And that belt that Larry Zbyszko actually lost is in the hands of one Stephen P. New. He owns that official belt that is not actually official at all, but it's still a really awesome piece of Backdoor
Another
wrestling
guy,
history.
another guy, a friend of mine by the name of Mr. Saint Laurent from Major League Wrestling, was one of the last AWA Tag Team Champions along those same lines in that same era, Rez. And he has some really great stories from then too, befriending Zbyszko and them having the latter stages AWA world titles.
Oh, that's a belt that I remember this belt with the Road Warriors owning it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about the NWA 6-man?
Ooh.
Well, real quick before we get off this AWA tag belt, if you'll notice that world in the middle, even the font is identical. It's identical to the WWF tag titles.
Which is identical to the World Championship Wrestling when it transitioned from Georgia Championship to World Championship Wrestling.
This actually, this brings up the guy who just died who probably made all those belts, and it would make sense that Reggie Parks had, however these were made before CNC machines. I have no idea how these belts were made. They were probably cast, I would guess. But that would make sense if Reggie Parks were making all of these. He probably had the same fonts for all the different belts because that's who made 95% of it. And Derek, who is Reggie Parks's protege?
You talking about Dave Milken?
There you go. Yeah, I couldn't think of it. So that would make sense that those fonts would kind of go between promotions.
All right. So what was the other title that you wanted to mention, Matt?
The 6-man NWA 6-man tag team championship belt.
I remember, and I bet you Steve New does. We remember when this was a trophy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it kind of the AEW belt has some similarities, I think.
Yeah, with that tall bit, with that tall middle.
And once again, you can see that world at the top. Very, very similar.
Reggie Parks only had so many fonts, bro.
That's exactly right.
Reggie Parks had one world design and was like, we're using that for everything.
Hey, Barker, find a picture of it that has the outside plates too, because it actually should have 4 plates.
Ooh. Boy, that is dope.
Mm-hmm.
It does resemble the AEW World Heavyweight title.
Big time. And isn't AEW about to have a 6-man too?
I don't know.
Yes, I do
It's
believe
been
that.
teased, I think.
Heavily rumored.
Trios. It'll probably be trios because it'll have to be.
I
Trios.
think that's just a sick title. I mean, that's
super sick.
Another belt that I want to mention before we get out of here is the WWE Cruiserweight Championship. I really like that belt. I know that maybe some of you don't share the same sentiment with me. But I like the OG, the purple.
This one.
The
Okay.
purple. No.
No, like the 205 purple strap belt.
205 purple, not the
Thing is
NXT
awesome.
Cruiserweight, not the NXT Cruiserweight, the WWE Cruiserweight Championship with the purple strap, the one that there you go.
Oof.
That's the one.
Oof.
You don't like that one?
Oof.
No. I don't like it.
I don't like that at all.
I don't like it. It looks like it's the special edition Undertaker.
It does.
No, it's not that terrible. Come on, guys.
I mean, but the thing is, though, if we are in Rez's defense, we're kind of grading on a curve when it comes to modern belts, right?
yeah,
me-
and when it comes to modern belts, this is a good modern belt.
This is a
me-
good
for
modern
Chavo
belt.
Guerrero.
This is the only network logo belt that I think looks halfway decent at all.
I'll give you that. It's not as good as the UK, but it's good. It's not. It's good compared to all the WWE champions, women's, men's, all the tag team belts.
It's not as good as the UK Championship. It's not as good as the NXT North American Championship, but it is a pretty decent new wave belt.
On
And
a
you can
curve.
tell that you can tell that it was 100% designed by the same guy who designed the IC Championship, the new IC Championship.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely the same guy.
Here's something real quick, and then we'll probably wrap it up. There's one thing that, like, when I was doing all the pre-production for this and getting these pictures together for this, when we were, when we were talking about all those classic, the Winged Eagle and the Intercontinental, nothing hurts me more than when they have the new WWE logo on them. because if you buy them now, they'll have the the scribbly WWE, and it looks god awful. It's
luckily I have that the yellow Intercontinental Championship that I was talking about earlier. I actually have a WWF replica.
The nice block. Yeah.
So, I love having that. I know I hate that my eagle wing says WWE. I'd love to have an eagle wing with the WWF logo.
Hey, Derek knows a guy.
I know a guy.
I want an official one, not one from Pakistan.
Stephen P. When I was just looking for that Rick Martel magazine, I have this one framed. This is Sports Review Wrestling magazine, September 1978, and look at Greg the Hammer with that Mid-Atlantic heavyweight.
There you go.
Isn't that a great picture?
Yeah, it's a great picture.
A very great picture.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, pretty neat.
Speaking of Greg the Hammer Valentine, let me show you guys.
Is he there cleaning?
He's downstairs cleaning and fucking and Zodiac's upstairs.
Can you guys see that?
Hey.
Oh wow.
That's awesome.
Signed by Piper and Valentine.
Everybody's got a Greg the Hammer Valentine autograph. I actually have a dog collar that is autographed by Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Don't even get me started on the Greg Valentine shit.
Yes.
Oh no.
All right, ladies and gentlemen,
we rockadoodle.
We have talked at length about title belts today on the House of Kayfabe. Make sure if you're watching on YouTube, you hit subscribe. Make sure if you're listening on one of the many platforms we're available on, hit subscribe there as well. We need you to subscribe. We need you to click like.
Give us a review.
Yeah, give us a review, a 5-star one. If it's not a 5-star one, then fuck off. Don't give us one. But either way, we are here and we are gone now because we've got things to do. Coming up next on the House of Kayfabe, you are going to hear an interview with Jim Cornette that is coming up in just a couple of days. So keep a lookout for that, and we will see you right here in the house that Kayfabe built. Make sure you check us out at WrestleCade. We'll be there all weekend, and you will not be able to avoid us because we're going to be in your fucking face. We will see you next time right here on the House of Kayfabe.